Hello everybody and welcome to another Total War mod overview. And this time we have the Ancient Empires mod for Total War Attila. Now, in Total War Attila, it's basically one of the best games for mods, historically. Now this mod basically sets the Total War Attila campaign back to the ancient times, during the rise of the Roman Empire. Now, it's set in the climax of the Second Punic War between Rome and Carthage and the Battle of Zama. You can play as a bunch of different factions, as I think the mod recently was updated, so if you can enable historical names feature, Quart Hadasht instead of Carthaginian Republic. So you can play as Carthage, who has imperial ambition, and then we have Maritime Empire, which gives a lot of buffs for the economy. And its leader, faction leader, Hannibal Barca, Carthaginian general. We then have the Roman Republic, led by Sextus Julius Caesar, and who is the consul, I believe, at the time of the Second Punic War. Imperial Ambition and SPQR, Res Publica Roma. So, like I said, this is at the Second Punic War's climax. Rome has just conquered Hispania from Carthage, and they're about to fight Carthage in North Africa. And then, in the meantime, east of the Second Punic War, we have the successors of Alexander the Great who vie for power over his former territory. We have the vast Seleucid Empire, which was torn apart by civil war decades before, but had risen again and become more resurgent under the leadership of Antiochus III. Now we do have Basilia ton Seleucidon for historical names, and we have Alexander's legacy of the Diadochi, which has a lot of buffs to their army and their traditions. We have Seleucid overlords as well, because the Seleucids controlled a lot of eastern satrapies. We then have Ptolemaic Egypt, led by Ptolemaeus, or that's the Greek-ified version of his name. They control pretty much all of Egypt, as usual, to parts of Anatolia and Cyprus, and they are going to be constantly fighting the Seleucid Empire. Ptolemaic overlords in the Diadochi. We have Bactria. Now the Bactrians historically rebelled against the Seleucid Empire because they were originally one of their satrapies. They're led by King Euthydemus I, and the Bactrians would even start conquests in western India. We have Diadochi, east meets west. Then we have the Macedonian Kingdom, led by Philip V of Macedon, Basilinton Macedon, and just Bactria. And Philip V would actually go on historically to fight against Rome and lose at the Battle of Cynocephalae. We have the Diadochi and Great Conquerors. Next we have the Greek city-states. Now we have the Achaean League, led by Philopoemen, and basically they control pretty much all of the Peloponnese, including Athens, Sparta, Corinth. We have the Greek city-states, Greek cooperation, the Cretan city-states. There's like just historical names, we're not going to go through all that. Greek city-states and warring cities. And due to the fact that Crete was made up of a bunch of different city-states, but because it's the game, it has to be united, we have more disloyalty for their faction members, and they're led by Euphildates. We then have the Rhodian League, led by Ariston, Greek city-states and naval heritage. Then Pergamon, led by Attalus I, and Pergamon was also one of the factions that rebelled against the Seleucid Empire and formed their own kingdom. And they remained independent until they were annexed by Rome. Now we do have the pinnacle of Greek culture, Greek city-states. Then we have the Black Sea colonies, which were the Black Sea colonies are very interesting factions because, like in Rome 2 and in this mod, because they're basically a blend of Eastern as well as Greek units and culture. We have Bithynia, led by Prusius the First Cholon, and we have like Thracian units because the Gauls actually migrated into this area at one point, and then we also have the Black Sea units and some Greek units as well. Maritime colonies and mixed heritage because Greek, Thracian, and Eastern. Then we have the Bosporan Kingdom, and they basically were Greek colonists who colonized the area known as the Bosporus or the Crimea, and we have maritime colonies and colonists on the steppe. And these guys were constantly engaged in warfare, trade, and alliances with the various Scythian nomads. Their faction leader is Hygiamenian. I cannot pronounce that. Then we have Colchis, which is basically the birthplace of the Golden Fleece, and a land that's actually shrouded in myth, because I believe that they may have copied the Rome 2 description of Colchis, but then they also like added some of their own. And they were a fusion of Greek, Armenian, and Scythian units. They're led by Arxilus, maritime colonies and Greek mercantile aristocracy. Then we have Pontus, led by Mithridates I, and Pontus was one of the other factions that rose during the wars of the Diadochi when Alexander's empire fell, and Pontus wrestled away this territory from the Antigonids and the Seleucids and managed to retain their independence. Maritime colonies, Pontic Pride, led by Mithridates I, the third. Then we have Eastern kingdoms like Cappadocia, Eastern dynasties, Eastern nobles led by Ariarathes IV Eusebius. We have the Medes, who rule Media Atropatene, led by Artabazanes, Eastern dynasties, and Persian legacy. And now we have the Total War Troy soundtrack coming up for some reason. It's a pretty cool soundtrack. I played a little bit of Troy, but might give it another shot, give it another chance one day. We have Parthia, who also rebelled against the Seleucid hegemony, led by Arsaces II. Now originally Parthia was a Greek satrapy, but then they were invaded after they gained their independence by the Scythian Arsaces, and they're going to challenge the Seleucids in the east. Then we have Armenia, and they all have basically the same little faction traits, so we're not going to go through all of that. Led by Armen, and Armenia is a very interesting faction. It has a lot of cool units and of Eastern origin, and they have a difficult starting position because they're wedged in between the Persians in the east, the Greeks and Romans to the west. With Africans and Arab tribes, we have the Numidians, led by Massinissa, and they are allied with Rome and would help Rome against Carthage during the Second Punic War. Imperial allies. The shadow of the eagle may be heavy, but the benefits it brings are many and useful, and they have frontier kingdoms. We have the Garmatians, who rule like southern Africa, or southern part of northern Africa. Nabatean kingdom. We have the Sabaean kingdom. So these like Arab factions or pre-Arab factions are very interesting. They have a lot of cool faction traits, such as like the different Arabian buffs that it gives you, and you can try to like take over Arabia with like these tribes. We have the Kush, that's a cool looking lion, and we have pharaonic inheritors and frontier kingdoms, and the kingdom of Kush, or the Kushites, were very influenced by the ancient Egyptians of the pre-Ptolemaic times. So A lot of their units are going to be kind of like the Bronze Age Egyptian units. Then we have Celtic tribes like the Boii. These guys don't really need much explanation. We have the Cladonii, the Avernii. Now the Avernii are probably the most significant of these tribes, because they're basically the main tribe of Gaul, and they do have a lot of different buffs and traits like Gallic craftsmanship, merchant class, and tribal hegemony. We have the Kingdom of the Galatians. Now this is a very interesting tribe too, because the Galatians were originally a group of Celts that migrated and invaded Greece and Anatolia, and they would settle in Anatolia to create the Kingdom of Galatia. And as you can see in the unit, it's kind of like a mix of Greek and Thracian, and that's a pretty cool faction to try out. You have Hellenic influence that gives them like a technology boost, and we have tribal rule suffers severe penalties though. Then we have the Iceni, who rule in Britannia and would also challenge Rome as well. Then we have the tribes in Iberia that fight against both Rome and Carthage and ally with them at times, like the Turdetani, the Aravasi, the Cantabrians, and the Cantabrians would wage a long war against Rome in the mountains, the Galacii, and the Lusitani. Germanic tribes, we have the Nervii, the Cimbri in what is now Denmark, the Marcomanni, one of the most significant tribes, the Suebi, and the Helisi in the Baltic. Then we have the Balkans, where we have like a group of tribes who are very influenced by the Greeks, the Odrysian kingdom in Thrace that would fight against Macedon constantly and raids into Greece, tribal kingdoms and tribal coalitions. We have the kingdom of the Dalmatians, who are Illyrians. I really like the different animations that the modders actually added to this. Then we have the kingdom of the Getae, or the Dacians. And then finally we have steppe nomads, like the Roxolani, who are Scythian people. We have Royal Scythia itself, Scythian tribes, Saka tribes. And they have like all these different cultures too. It's very unique. I really need to try this mod out more after this update. They have Scythian, Saka, and they're all kind of the same, but there's just a couple different traits like units and history. Then we have the Tari. Now let's just jump in as any random faction. Let's just try Black Sea States, the Bosporan Kingdom, because I just want to see what like the campaign itself looks like on the screen. This and the Terminus mod that we did yesterday are very good mods for Total War Attila. But this is based on like real history. Terminus is more of like alternate. And this mod really was just updated, so let's just load it real quick. Graphics memory's running low. I need to really need to improve my graphics. That's Rome 2 music right there. Brings back like memories, because I really love the original Rome Total War. So like here we have the graphics. The map looks like a lot like Rome 2. Like if you think about it, it doesn't look like Attila. Though curiously positioned, our kingdom is no doubt primed for the glory. So we're not going to read all this out, but they have like their own intros and everything. The actual like UI is a lot like Total War Attila, but they bring in a lot of the mechanics from Rome too. So like, let's say we can get some trade.
I look forward to your wisdom.
Greetings, honored guest.
We have
I
Olbia.
serve as my people's ears and tongue, listening and speaking as will please. We greet
So I get trade with those guys, I would get like a. It has a welcome to ancient empires, and it has like some historical background on the whole thing. They have this soundtrack. It's kind of like Rome 1. I really enjoy that. They. This is actually quite an impressive mod because they make a whole new technology thing, and they also have their own objectives too. We have Hygienian. We have a lot of non-playable factions that are also pretty cool. Like Olbia is like a Greek city-state over here that you can try to conquer. Now you start off at war with the Scythian tribes and the Alans, and I believe I may have said this like to Total War Thrones of Britannia. I accidentally left the UI for Total War Thrones of Britannia on because now like I'm getting like axes for some reason, but it's still pretty cool. But that's going to be it for this mod overview. I will see you in the next one.